Hello YouTube! Scott here, and I am back with another Insta review. And this time we're looking at episode 3 of She-Hulk Attorney Outlaw. Now, the bulk of this episode seemed to be courtroom procedural, which is good because I kind of figured that's where we were going at the end of the last one, when they were talking about Emil Blonsky, the Abomination's parole hearing. Now, the interesting thing is most of the courtroom stuff actually takes place in the B story, which we'll get to in a minute. But start off with the A story. Yeah, Jennifer's representing Blonsky at his parole hearing. Now here's where it diverged from me a little bit. The whole thing at the end of the last episode where there's a video of the Abomination fighting Wong, a la Shang-Chi, something occurred to me. Like I said, I never watched the Incredible Hulk movie with Edward Norton as Bruce Banner, but I did watch Ryan George's pitch meeting about it, and they mentioned this one scene in the movie where some of Hulk's blood gets into the open wound of this scientist who starts transforming into a monster, and then it's literally never mentioned again. So it was my theory, up until I saw this episode, that maybe they had brought this guy back at random. Because, would Marvel close a 15-year-old plot hole like that? I don't know. Was Captain America actually born on July 4th? But anyway, it turns out from the beginning of this episode, we find out that, yeah, the Abomination did leave prison, and it was Wong who put him up to it. So there's a whole thing with Blonsky's parole hearing. His 7 soulmates are there, as well as a bunch of character witnesses, because they're waiting on Wong, who is late, despite the fact that, he travels by portal, so you wouldn't think he'd actually be late for anything. And the whole thing winds up being resolved when Blonsky shows that he has control over, the Abomination. He's not, a mindless rage monster, basically. And that ties in with, the media circus surrounding his escape and his parole hearing in general, and of course the additional media circus surrounding She-Hulk because she's a superpowered lawyer. I thought it was interesting how at the beginning, more or less around the beginning, you get the same kind of comments about her on the show that we've been seeing in real life, like why we need a She-Hulk, or why she doesn't look bulked up enough apparently when she transforms, but I guess people don't like the CGI. What the hell ever? How realistic do you expect a 6'7" green woman to look? You know what's happened. We've been seeing this with Bruce Banner and the Hulk. Get the hell over it, man. Anyway, Blonsky's parole is granted, and there's a scene at the end. I'm actually going to get back to that, because I want to get into the B story at this point, because they decided they needed to bring back Dennis, the irredeemable misogynist from the DA's office. Why? I don't know. He's still an entitled bro, straight through the whole thing. Renee Elise Goldsberry, who, as you may know, was the original Angelica Schuyler in the stage production of Hamilton, has this, one-line appearance that I really hope isn't just a cameo. And his whole thing with her is, immediately just calling her a 10 and saying he can't talk about his problems with her because apparently she's too hot. He winds up with the superhero law division because, and this does actually tie in perfectly with his character, he was deceived by a light elf from New Asgard who's a shapeshifter and had him believing that she was Megan Thee Stallion. Because he really believed he really believed he could get with Megan Thee Stallion. She-Hulk happens to be there when this whole thing is revealed, and she can't stop laughing about it, which is great. But she actually comes along later during his trial. Now, there are some funny moments with the Light Elf. Since She-Hulk refuses to take his case, it goes to Pug. And they get into discussing the particulars, and then Dennis is still just a freaking entitled jerk, and he leaves. And then he says he comes back and says that he wants to drop the whole thing, except that at the same time, Pug gets a call from Dennis talking about how his cyber truck, of course he has a cyber truck, got towed. And he realizes, that it's the shape-shifting elf. And then, during the hearing, before their trial, the elf files a motion to dismiss because, Dennis should have known he wasn't actually dating the Megan Thee Stallion. But it winds up going to trial anyway, and then the judge leaves, and then comes back and says, based on some new evidence of dropping this whole thing, nope, White Elf again, because apparently she just can't stop impersonating people. But like I said, bringing it back a little bit, Jennifer actually testifies at that trial, where she points out how freaking entitled and toxic and just absolutely deluded Dennis is, and how he would actually believe he could actually get with the Megan Thee Stallion. So Dennis actually winds up winning his case, and the real Megan Thee Stallion's there in a cameo, talking about how there's only one her and it's her. And of course, Dennis, even walking out of the courtroom, was like, do you think I had a shot with the real Megan Thee Stallion? Should I go back there? But he inadvertently gives Jennifer an idea about somehow being able to, the possibility of taking away her powers, because he wants to do that same thing to the Light Elf so she can't cause any more trouble. Which might be the most coherent thing he says. So Jennifer has that idea on her mind. And then after all this, and after getting Blonsky set out on parole, she tries to go on a new show to tell her side of the story. She gets as far as being able to explain why she's called SheHulk, because she didn't come up with it, and then they just cut away. And they say, we'll be back with her diet and exercise tips. So you kind of get this sense that even though she's trying to get her side of the story out, nobody's going to take her seriously, and that's really unfortunate. But then there's a little twist that comes at the end of the episode. Jennifer, in Jennifer form, is accosted by 4 men that apparently have Asgardian-based weaponry. And, one of them, grabs her, by the neck from behind, and she's starting to panic, and then she's like, oh, wait. And she She-Hulks out and takes them out. One of them attempts to stab her with something, but the needle bends. And, yeah, she takes care of them easily. And they go running away, and their leader's like, did you get it? And the guy holds up the syringe. He's like, no, I couldn't pierce her skin. It's like, the boss isn't going to be happy about that, so something's going on there. Apparently somebody wants the Hulk powers. And, given what Bruce said about how, he and Jennifer share certain genetic mutations that allow them to synthesize gamma radiation, it almost makes me wonder if, it's going to be someone in her family, someone in her distant family, or just somebody who happens to be that equally genetically gifted. I don't know. But, for my money, the plot moved along well. You had the funny moments with fourth wall breaking, of course. Jennifer being, not only aware that she was talking to us, but that she's on a TV show, which fits a character from the comics. He was talking about how, this isn't going to be a cameo a week, a cameo every episode thing, except that, there's already been Bruce and Blonsky and now Wong. Hoping to see more of Renee Elise Goldsberry. She's super talented. Like to know what she's doing in the superhero law division. And it does make sense that they would have more than one lawyer in it. I don't know where this is going to go, but clearly, it's going to start getting serious because somebody's obviously out to get Hulk powers. And I believe they're halfway through the season because I'm pretty sure there's only supposed to be 6 episodes. And I'm sure I'm about to be proven wrong about that. But if it is the halfway point, that does make sense that, there would be a evil villain behind the scenes introduced at this point. But I guess we'll find out. So anyway, that's what I thought and a lot of what happened. So, you do the usual, oh my gosh, I'm just losing it today. Do the usual YouTube stuff, comment on it, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. I'll be back next week for another one, and until then, I have been Scott, and this has been Instant Review, an offshoot of opinions no one cares about. Everyone has opinions. This one was mine.